welcome to the Modern Agile Show, episode 13. I'm here with my friends Melissa Perri and Matthew Barcomb.
Hello, everybody.
And we are going to talk today a little bit about the product owner role as defined by Scrum in context of Modern Agile. So, boy, where do we start?
Well,
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
At the very beginning.
Always
Wait, it's a
place.
circle.
Very good place
I
to
don't understand.
start.
How about with making people awesome?
Ah,
How does the role make anybody awesome?
It doesn't.
okay. Well,
So,
should we say that none of us like this role to start out with? So
Oh,
you're
yeah,
just
that's
be
fair.
prepared.
The
We
role,
think-
not the people.
you know what my
People
favorite
are
question
fine.
is? What the difference is between a product owner and a product manager?
Ooh, what is
That's a
the
good one.
difference?
There shouldn't be one.
Okay, so they really should be product manager.
Yes.
But what do we find instead?
That a lot of people go to CSPO training and then are like, ta-da! You are now a product owner. And they have zero domain in product management, which is all about like what you should be doing, like the philosophy and the domain and the practice and the skills that don't involve grooming backlogs.
Well, the CSPO doesn't even cover product management.
It does not at all. It tells you how to refine a backlog.
Okay, so Scrum is very backlog focused. It's also, well, they don't use the term single ringable neck anymore,
And
but it has that
they're chickens.
history. They're chickens.
I was getting interviewed by, what was it? I think Scrum.org or Scrum Inc., one of them. And they asked me, what would you tell a product owner who wanted to become a Scrum Master so that they could be part of the team? And I looked at them and I went, what? They said, yeah, product owners are not part of the team. And I was, that's some bullshit.
That's
And I
just-
think that also kind of, touches on making safety a prerequisite, because a lot of times I feel like the product owner being outside the team almost makes the team and the product owner at loggerheads. Another word for
Yeah.
loggerheads is backlog, I think. But isn't that when the logs are ahead? It's a backlog of logs. Well, anyway.
Sure.
But that doesn't feel very safe, right? If we craft just from out of the gate this idea of a predatory product owner instead of someone who's working with the team to
Yeah.
It becomes more command and control. Like the product owner controls everything that you're going to be working on instead of letting the team help define some of the solutions and make trade-offs as well and have a healthy debate.
Yeah, so what if a developer wants to try and experiment in production
Yeah.
on a percentage of the customers just to see if their notion about how to improve a sales funnel or something like that could get better?
Mm-hmm.
Can they do that with freedom, or do they need to?
In Scrum, you have to get it approved by the product owner.
So then it has to get on the backlog at some point.
It has to get prioritized,
Hmm.
and then it has to fit into your 2-week sprint.
I also like how a lot of times in especially larger companies, all communication is almost supposed to be like channeled through the product owner and then the product owner to the Scrum Master
Yeah.
and then to the team.
Good
And
point.
like if you remember how like XP is like, team members can just go talk to the customer. And it's,
What an idea.
Well, and is the customer even allowed to sit with the team if they always have to go through the product owner? I don't know. How does that work? Or is the product owner the customer? And then, what was that awful video about the Scrum Master who was like the rugby tackler guy?
Yes, I remember that.
Wow.
So
much dysfunction.
I went and I asked a bunch of people like why. So if you go back to Ken Schwaber's first mention of the product owner in his book Agile Project Management from 2004, he says the product owner is the customer, right? And then you read deeper
No.
later, right? Yes, it's not true. And you read deeper later. In a couple of years, like he explains, or a proxy for the customer, right?
Oh,
Like they
sorry.
pretend to be,
Right.
which is a little bit better.
Maybe
but
he meant epoxy, like stuck on the customer?
yeah, maybe
No?
stuck on you. So the product owner. So I went and I asked them about that. I said, "How is a product owner the customer?" And they said, "I was talking to some people who were coming up with Scrum motorcycles." Sneaking up on us.
Motorcycles.
Uh,
Ignore the motorcycle.
Swear it's
Let
the
me-
motorcycle.
Like this is the hood of
It is
Berkeley.
totally not
It's
the
not
Mexican
Berkeley.
food we have.
It's a warm day in Berkeley, and I'm just going to close some
It's
windows.
very warm. So I asked them about this, and they said, well, they were a bunch of consultants who were coming up with these practices, working at banks, and the customer for them was the internal business person. So they made the internal business person like the product owner, who just kind of came up with the requirements and passed it to the development team. And that was a way for them to hold that person accountable for the scope of work that they were actually working on.
This is like old-fashioned IT shit that we have to like. We really, really need to retire it.
You can't spell shit without IT.
God, how do you guys find you get awesome results where you make people awesome, the customer, you make the end user awesome? That's what Modern Agile purports to do, right? How do you do that in this modern way, right?
I think you don't have the product owner is not just the backlog jockey. They're not just reprioritizing it. To me, that's an administrative role, right? Like that's like the executive assistant of the backlog, where you're just like,
Bill, could you please move card to position 3?
And that needs to have 13 points on it right there. You know, like that's all it is. And it's like, how are those points coming, right? That's what it purports to be.
Right. What's better?
Having product managers, I think, that are involved with their dev team. So like when I teach my product managers, I tell them, you own the problem domain. So
who owns it?
The product manager.
Okay.
So you're going to be figuring out what problem we should be going after or what goal we should be going after. You're involving your development team and your UX designers and along that path to help determine what the problem is. You're coming to it. But like you're more focused in the problem domain, and you are kind of figuring out some maybe necessary requirements, especially if there's anything standard or legal or anything that needs to be in there. But you're letting your developers and your designers basically come up with a solution. Like, here's the problem, guys. This is where we're going. What should we do? And you're getting everybody in there to come up with a solution. So instead of just saying, here, go build me this feature, go build me this, go build me that. Like, you're not passing requirements, you're passing them problems.
Sure.
Right, and so you're tapping into their creativity.
Exactly.
That's so much better. That's who said that product ownership is a team sport? Have you heard that expression? I don't know if Jeff Patton said it.
But I like it.
It's a team sport. I think I might have heard Jeff Patton say it once. To me, that's what you're just talking about there. If you're giving problems to the team that stem from some strategy or some vision of something what you want to accomplish out in the field, now it's like a team effort to actually figure out, how do we solve this? Not go do this. This was on the product backlog. We don't even need to discuss it. You could just pop it off the backlog and do it. There's no point even talking about it. That's crazy stuff, because that doesn't really lead to great results. Nope. Especially if they're the proxy for the customer. I mean, how often have you gone to customers, observed what they're doing, and learned so much about what really needs to be done? Versus what you think needs to be done.
Actually going to the Gemba and seeing what they want. And actually most product owners are either slightly glorified business analysts and they don't ever get to go see the customer, and the idea that they're a proxy is just this pass-through for a requirement. Or they're usually more senior and they're never around and they're busy with their day job. I love that. I'm a product owner, but I've got a day job.
Yeah. It's a full-time job.
It's probably a couple full-time jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't be the product owner and the head of marketing. Like, you can't be the product owner and the head of sales or the salesperson. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's a dedicated job, and it needs skills, just like a developer would or a UX designer does.
So, I mean, I know that Mary Poppendike is totally against this role, the product owner role. I know that Don Reinertson, who wrote The Principles of Product Development Flow, is completely against it. I know you guys are completely against it. I've been against this role for a very long time, because it does become a single ringable neck. It does inhibit collaboration. It does take away from the team sport of trying to solve problems. When are we going to get beyond it? I mean, I don't want to hear the term product owner anymore when I go to places. I want to hear about team collaboration. I want to hear about team problem solving. And I want to hear about teams going to the Gemba, like you said, going to the customer and observing what are they doing with our software? Like, what do they need?
Even for the things that Scrum had that were supposed to be team-related activities, I feel like we butchered them. Like, I just learned this. I did not know this. But from all the standard Scrum stuff I saw, like backlog grooming, I see teams just do like a 1-hour meeting every week or every other week where they get in a room, they go through the backlog, they rewrite the user stories so they're all pretty, and then they put story points on it. And that's it. That's all they do in the meetings. And that's the start of their work, right?
I thought we were just playing I thought they were just playing rock, paper, scissors.
He's got it, though. I mean, I'd like a
they
9.
They were putting story points on things. I thought, like, that's a 5.
That's a 5.
2.
3. So it's like bingo.
Mm.
I got a 5. So I didn't know this, and I always thought, what a pointless meeting, right? Like, couldn't you do this somewhere?
What a pointful meeting.
Yes.
Sorry. I didn't intend to do that. So I always thought it was a pointless meeting, and people were wasting time with it. And I saw teams spend hours in these meetings too, just going through their backlogs because they have 500 stories in these backlogs. And then I talked to Ron Jeffries about it at the Agile 2017 conference, and he told me, he's like, what? I don't understand why you're so upset with this. And I said, well, it's a 1 hour pointless meeting. He goes, no, backlog grooming is supposed to be like 10% of up to 10% of your sprint. And it's where you determine what solution you're going to be doing and break it down, and you story map with your team, and you all contribute to figuring out what you're going to be incrementing or iterating on that week, right? Like, what are you supposed to be doing? And I've never seen any company use it that way.
Right.
So it's like even the ones that had good intentions, like people have butchered those processes.
Yeah.
And
when
people
you
have let
follow
them
any
get
of
away
the
with
things
it too.
that just do the thing, like the butchered demos that aren't demoing software, demos that aren't demoing working software.
Yeah. The iteration becomes a shiteration.
The shiteration.
Someone recently introduced me to this term, so I didn't make it up, but we don't want to be producing.
We make
crap.
Small product excrements.
Yes, not increments, as you say.
Right.
So it's a lot of going through the motions. We got a lot of jazz hands going on, and nobody's really dancing.
So in my book, if you're gonna have the right kind of people chartering what to go build, you want to of course involve the development team, but you tend to need to have the voice of an architect, a sales or marketing type person, maybe an operations person who's fielding a lot of the pain from the customer field. Like for previous version 6.2 is getting murdered in the field. We're working on version 7, and you don't realize there's all this stuff that needs to be fixed. Hey, listen to me. I'm hearing about the pain from the customers. Operations person. Sometimes we've had tech writers part of that group because they realize what needs to be written about.
UX.
It's a little community.
Designers.
It's UX designers.
Analysts.
Analysts.
Yeah. This was another thing I saw because they say it's like developers, designers, and product owner on a team. We've had it well, we can't have business analysts on a team,
right,
or we can't have tech writers on a team. And I'm like, well, sometimes you do need those people. It depends on what kind of work you're doing.
Well, I guess in fairness, Scrum just says they're called developers, but their role
they're called
could be
team members, I guess.
Team members, but it's confusing people.
Yeah.
What I'm saying here is that I think we all agree is that having a cross-functional group shepherding what to build, not controlling it. The developers have hey, I want to do an experiment and learn rapidly. I want to try something. But shepherding it, and then there's a lead. We have lead developers. Why can't we have a lead customer with a little community, right? That they meet together, they work together, they harness each other's ideas. The architect may say, look, if we don't fix this fault-tolerant problem, the thing's going to fall flat on its face in production, and I don't care about your new features. It's got to be safer. Make safety a prerequisite. That voice has to be heard. And it can't just be a non-technical product owner making every single decision. You're gonna be. It's a journey to technical oblivion, right? Technical debt, or technical bankruptcy.
And this should be a back and forth thing, right? When I was product manager, I'd come to my dev team and say, "Hey, I need to learn, what might make people buy this, or I need to learn what these problems are. Or I need to put out a test to kind of figure this out. How can we do it? How can we do it in the shortest amount of time? What do we design? These are the things that I think are criteria, but what do you guys think, right?" And we'd sketch it all out together. And I'd say, well, what if I want to put this in here so that what if I want to put a drop down in here? Or what if I want to put this algorithm to make this show up? How much longer is that going to take? And we would have negotiations about that. And they'd be like, no, that's actually too technically complex. It'll take another 3 weeks to do it. And I'm like, okay, let's not do that. What else can we do? And instead of just here's your story, right? Go build me this.
Right.
Where I don't see developers push back on as much on the product managers, which also makes them resentful. And then I also don't see the product managers even asking them their opinion on these things.
Right. The developers become what I call ordineers. They just take orders, don't ask questions, do what they're told, don't even like discuss alternative ways, options for how to implement that story. There could be tons of different options. It's especially when you're right. If you get problems, then you open it up to creativity. You're working with smart people. Like they have all kinds of ideas.
Well, there's not a whole lot in at least the guide, right, about like this pretty little snowman picture with regards to the product owner role. It's almost like, and thus a product backlog was born.
Yeah, I know. How does it come?
Where does it come from? Storks, product storks.
But
new role, product storks.
And product backlogs, as we know, get so friggin' long. I mean, what about a release plan? Just a simple release plan or a story map.
I tell everybody to take what they're going to release in that sprint and throw the rest of the backlog out, or maybe keep something for like just the next sprint. But that's it. And I've had managers actually say stuff like, "Oh, this team isn't really thinking ahead. Their backlog only goes one release out." And I'm like, "Good, right?" Because I remember like cleaning up at one of the companies I was at. I had 5,500 stories in an icebox, which was the backlog of the backlogs, right? That I had to go through at one point and delete. And you know how many I deleted? 5,500. Yeah.
Oh my God.
None of them were relevant anymore.
This is like we're trying to build functional specifications by creating backlogs now of just like gigantic lists of things to do.
Yeah, because it's like, God forbid we document anything anymore.
Right. So instead, we just make tons of cards.
Well, and there's the opposite problem where they code and code and code and never release. I call that tantric development, actually.
Well, anything else to report on this product owner role? Have we retired the role? I mean, is it as a result of this
it makes
show?
me tired a lot.
Yeah.
The product owner is dead. Long live product ownership.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Long live product ownership. I like that.
Yes. I would say we still need product managers.
Yes.
We need good product managers.
Yes. Trained.
Trained product managers who know what they're doing, can evaluate a complex problem and help lead and rally a team of experts around solving it.
Fully on board.
But we don't need people to manage a backlog.
Right. And a single ringable neck and someone who's like a jockey around. How many story points is that? What did you say the other day?
We don't need administrators.
You don't need administrators. You said something to me. You said like you were looking at how long it took to do a 3-story point story, a 5.
Like if you actually start measuring the cycle time per story point label you use, and you find that like, oh look, my 2s take 2 days, and my 3s take 2.5 days, and my 5s take 2.7 days.
Then what's the friggin'?
I think we have something that we'd like to go. But the reality is usually it's like my 2s and 3s and 5s take 10 days.
Yeah.
Please stop using story points, folks,
Don't use story points.
You know, reconsider this product owner role completely.
That would be better. No points, no product owner role.
Get some training in product management and in product ownership of a team collaboratively creating an awesome product.
And learn a little bit of math, basic math, statistical basic math.
The team owns the product outcome, not just one person.
I love it. Why don't we end on that note?
Sounds good.
Thank you both for visiting me here in Berkeley and for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back.
Thanks.
So, cheers.
Cheers. Oh, Matt.
Matt didn't want me one, so.
It's grapefruit.
Bye-bye, folks.